Hello, this is Rudy Giuliani, and I'm back with Rudy's Common Sense. The episode today, as it should be, which I am doing on Christmas Eve, is about Christmas and about what it is, what it should be, and to some extent what it's become, and how we can bring it back. Christmas Day is almost upon us, and for any of us who were brought up in the Western tradition, I'd say, and fortunate enough to have parents, whether poor or middle class or whatever, who were able to provide a Christmas, no matter how small or large. It was for the children enormously exciting. It was the most exciting day and the most exciting night, Christmas Eve, of the year. And of course, you know, the reason it exists is the celebration, the remembrance of the birth of Jesus Christ as the Son of God and as God become man to save us from our sins and show us a way to salvation. The most important thing that ever happened in the history of the world. Well, that's, of course, to those of us who believe. But that, regardless of whether you believe or not, that's the genesis of it. So when all these people are running around and celebrating and singing carols and having parties and getting drunk at office parties and who knows what else they're doing, there's only one reason it's happening. It's like Tiny Tim says in A Christmas Carol about Ebenezer Scrooge, when everybody is making comments about him, nasty comments about him. Tiny Tim says, well, he's the founder of the feast. Well, the founder of this feast is the infant baby who was born in Bethlehem about 2,000 years ago. Not necessarily on December 25th. We'll talk about that. But he was born in meager, lowly circumstances, but adored by the shepherds and magi, and lived a short life. And I don't think anyone would dispute with you it was the most significant life ever lived in the history of the world. I don't know if I have to prove that. I mean, the religion that is the most universal, covers every continent, is the Christian religion, the religion of Jesus Christ. It's affected our civilization, Western civilization, profoundly. It's affected others very significantly. And there's no other one single human being that has had as much impact on world history. Tonight, this is Christmas Eve, as I said, when hundreds of millions of Christians celebrate Christmas Eve. They'll read the same gospel on every single continent in every language imaginable. And they'll read about Mary and Joseph having to go to Joseph's town to register for the first census, and having to leave Nazareth in what you would call now mid-north, north of Israel, to the south of Israel, Bethlehem, which is now in the Palestinian Authority. Short trip by car now, a long trip by donkey then. They'll all read the same thing. And it's from the emanation of that all of this has come about. And this magic night takes place. Now, the magic night takes place because of things you might regard as somewhat frivolous. I look back when I was 10 and 12 and 8 and 14 and to not being able to sleep the night before and wondering what was under the tree. And when I believed in Santa Claus, was I a good boy or not? And like the young man in The Christmas Story, which is why it's so popular, was I going to get the Red Ryder BB gun? I was in Brooklyn and then in Long Island, and BB guns weren't too popular there. But having watched that movie now, I wish I had gotten it. But whether the child is wishing for the toy rifle or a bicycle or a basketball or a football or a basketball court or a beautiful new coat, lovely doll, it's special. And it stays with you. And when you start to forget it, it comes back if you are fortunate enough to be a parent, doesn't it? Then you relive your childhood through creating that same wonder for them. I remember my children, both before and after I was mayor, because a good many of my Christmas Eves in the early growth of my children was spent in Gracie Mansion. I remember their excitement and the time they believed in Santa Claus, and as they came out of it, and one particular situation comes back, which I am going to mention. It's not a happy memory, but Christmas is not all happy memories. The happy memories are magnified at Christmas time, and the sad ones are too. The people we lose and the tragedies that occur. I remember a few days before Christmas, my uncle, who was at that time a fairly young firefighter, was thrown off the truck and broke his back, and questioned whether he'd walk again, whether he'd live. And eventually he went back and he became a captain in the fire department with a 27-year career. But it was a very, very dark, very somber Christmas. Then I remember my first year as mayor. Obviously, I can tell you the date, December 24, 1994. I went to midnight mass at St. Patrick's Cathedral with my wife, Donna. And I do believe we brought Andrew. I just quite can't remember. He was right on the cusp of the age at which you would bring him. And we left Caroline with my mom, and with the family that used to come to a Christmas Eve gathering that I would have when I was the mayor. And some would come to St. Patrick's and some would stay at the house. And the mass was over. It was beautiful. And the cardinal had a small gathering afterwards. And we stayed very short time because of Andrew, that he blessed Andrew. It was always a religious experience to be with John O'Connor. And for me, a very, very uplifting one. I came home and I had to put together two toys. I remember one was a dollhouse and the other was something for Andrew. And I got the dollhouse together, which is kind of strange because I never had a dollhouse. And whatever I put together for Andrew, I did have. And I kept my suit on. I never bothered to change because you know how you get about those things. And then you put one A into B and B into C and C into D and D into F and G and all of a sudden it falls apart. And you put it together and it falls apart. And now you're thinking, my God, you're making too much noise and wake up the kid. It's going to blow the whole Santa thing. And he was at the age where, he's beginning to look at me funny when you do the Santa Claus thing. Caroline was in it for all it's worth. And all of a sudden, I got a call from downstairs where the police station was, the police guard station. And they said, Mr. Mayor, a police officer was shot in Manhattan. They're rushing him to NYU Hospital. And we know you want to be notified of these things right away. I said, let's get started. Everybody gets started. I said, well, we haven't heard from the police commissioner yet. It was Bill Bratton at the time. We haven't heard from the police commissioner, and we always have this protocol that, he's going to go over it with you first, so you're not surprised, and so we don't walk into a difficult situation. I had been known to show up in difficult situations. So I said, okay. I went back to putting, but I was so disturbed. I really was. We had a firefighters right before that. Christmas time always seemed to be a time when we had serious injuries to our firefighters. Very often had deaths to our firefighters, largely because of the Christmas trees, but just for a whole host of reasons. But police officers, not as much. And I was working on, but I couldn't pay attention, and I was getting worse and worse at putting the thing together. And I was all dressed, and once I finished this, I was, of course, going to get undressed and go to bed and get ready to get up real early, because as soon as the sun came out, Caroline, would shoot to the Christmas tree, and you wanted to be there to see it, take pictures of it. So I decided I would not get undressed, and I would go downstairs, and I'd go put myself near NYU Hospital so that I could go in. I did. Police officers were there, 24 hours a day. We got in the car. I never used these sirens in and around Gracie Mansion unless it was a really, really important, significant emergency, because I had a fundraiser once when I was running for mayor because the people who lived there were offended that David Dinkins used to do that. And they raised money to make me mayor and promised that I'd only use it if I had to. And things like that stay with me. So I didn't need this. I didn't need it because I wasn't sure if I should be there or not. But, we moved out pretty fast, and there was nobody on the road. And the whole distance is about 3 miles. We were there, and we were 2 blocks away, and Bill called me and said, Mayor, I don't think you should show up for this one. I said, oh, why, Bill? He said, well, we're not sure yet, but I think it was a suicide. This young man was very, very depressed. His girlfriend left him, and he's been calling her all day, and they've been having a fight all day, and he's been going in and out of Smith's bar, even though he shouldn't, while he was on duty. It's right near 42nd Street. Gone now. And apparently got very, very drunk, and got off duty and walked over to Smith's bar, went into the back where he had been drinking all day, and all of a sudden they hear a shot, and he looks like he blew his brains. Whoa. I said, Bill, I think I should go. He said, but you don't want to get through. I said, we're not going to. Let me come in backwards, back. So I did. I came into the back door. I spent time with him, some of his family showed up, and tried to do the best that I could to talk to people about the complexity of life and the fact that his life, it was an important life, because who knows how many people he saved. Whatever happened to the complexity of the human mind, and God will fix it. I don't remember really exactly what I said, and I went back to Gracie Mansion, a different person. You go in 2 seconds from the most beautiful things in life, the birth of the baby Jesus, which we celebrated at having communion, your wonderful children, you're going to make them happy. Always feeling guilty you didn't spend enough time with them as a mayor. Now devoting the night to putting together their toys, incompetent though I was. And then all of a sudden, the worst part of human life comes up. Something very hard for many of us to understand. Right? The young man takes his life. You say to yourself, I wish I had a chance to talk to him. I wish I had a chance to tell him there'll be many, many more girls, my friend. You're 26 years old. Gee, if I could just have that opportunity. I did that with 2 people, talked them down from doing it. Often it's just getting perspective. But that's Christmas, and it stays in your mind unlike anything else. And I want to re-emphasize the fact that there's a reason for that. And the reason for that is not because of the gifts or the Christmas trees or the wonderful parties or the beautiful movies and shows and great music and the general spirit of love and caring. Oh, no. It's here because there are more people that believe in this particular religion than any other religion in the history of the world. And what they believe is that on that day, God intervened in the world and made his son part of his triune personality, God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. The Jewish people, the chosen people of God. My goodness, the human beings are so important that God talks to them. God communicates with Moses and the prophets, and he even seems to have some arguments with them. If not arguments, discussions, differences. Forgives them at times when they are disloyal, brings them back. And then the ultimate. Man is made in the image of God. I think I remember in my catechism, man is made in the image and likeness of God. That makes man, woman, humanity very important. It makes human life sacred. Of course, it's underlined in the thou shalt not kill and the 10 commandments that God gives directly to Moses. You couldn't make that point stronger than by God becoming man. That's the core of it. You're celebrating like this because that happened and because more people believe that than believe any other religion. Now, you may not believe it, but if none of them did, and he never lived or nobody paid attention to him, you wouldn't be celebrating. That's the point. So I noticed an article in the New Epic Times about that great piece, A Christmas Carol. And it talks about the significance of the Christmas Carol and why it may be significant today. But there's a quote in it I'd like you to think about because it may help us to figure out what we have to do. It's written by Sean Fitzpatrick, and the name of it is Do You Know a Christmas Carol? And it goes on to describe the bigger philosophy or the bigger reason and the things that Christmas Carol accomplished in reviving Christmas, along with Washington Irving in America and Clement Moore, which was the night before Christmas. In this part of the 19th century, Christmas became much more prominent. But he writes, does Fitzpatrick, about then. Christmas is a lost and long forgotten mystery in need of a great awakening, which is the thundering and laughing message of Charles Dickens' Carol. I would say we could apply this today, that Christmas is a lost and long forgotten mystery in need of a great awakening. Isn't that what we should do? Shouldn't we awaken it? Shouldn't we awaken Christmas? Shouldn't we have a reformation? And even if not everyone is going to believe, because that's never going to be the case, let's make sure we put Jesus in the middle of the Christmas story, because he is the Christmas story. And let's make certain that we all remind ourselves of that, first of all, as believers, and that we remind others who are partaking of the collateral effects of that. Why? All who participate should know why this day and season is so exceptional. You know, the biblical basis for Jesus' birthday being Christmas has been put in doubt because, and this comes largely from the Puritans who banned Christmas for a period of time in England and in the United States because they said it had no biblical basis. Well, they're being very short-sighted. And I think somehow, if you excuse me with an aside, I think there's a bit of prejudice involved in that because of the name that it acquired, Christmas. Focus on what Christmas means. It means Christmas Mass. So that word wasn't applied, and focusing on the holiday of Christmas didn't happen originally. When the early Christians began practicing their new religion, which many of them saw as just another version of Judaism, they did a Last Supper again, a reenactment of the Last Supper, which turned into the sacrificial part of the Mass. They sat down at the table and they broke bread and they consecrated the bread and did as Jesus told them to do this in memory of me. And that clearly is laid out in the Bible, particularly in the Acts of the Apostles and the Epistles. But there's no reference to a celebrating the baby Jesus' birthday. It probably didn't come about until somewhere in the 2nd century, and it was originally the earliest they can get back to is about 200 A.D. And they picked January 6th as the date. And then in the mid-4th century, I believe it was Pope Julius I, moved it to December 25th. And he moved it to December 25th. And so this is another reason why Christmas is put in doubt by the Puritans. But he moved it to December 25th because it coincided with some great pagan festivals that Romans participated in, and that many of the Christians and Jews participated in because they participated in the fun part of it, the way non-believers in Jesus participate in the fun parts of Christmas. And the two, if I recall correctly, there were two of them. I'll show you how they're spelled because they're Latin words. One was Saturnalia, and the other was Juvenalia. So one was for the god of agriculture, and the other was for the god of light. Actually, a Hindu god, but the Romans celebrated this, and they celebrated these around the time of the winter solstice. It's the shortest day of the year, I should say. And it's beginning from that day on, every day will be longer. The sun will be out longer. So among other things, both of these, even the one god of agriculture, the god of light, they celebrate light. And they celebrate the fact that things are going to be more beautiful and more open. And this is a period of time, particularly the Saturnalia feast, where poor people, the working people, are elevated to status in which the richer people, the more significant people, serve them and help them and bring them gifts. And I'm guessing now that it probably is sort of thank you for the harvest, a way of thanking the people who made it possible. So then Julius, thinking like a good executive, said, I'm going to be nice and comfortable for my Roman converts if I placed a great feast right there, and we can have our feast and they can have their feast, and who knows, maybe many of them will come over. And boy, did it work. He made December 25th the date. He took January 6th and made it the date of the Epiphany, which was the arrival of the three kings to celebrate Jesus. The official Christmas, really, where you can be sure of it, because the 2nd century part is somewhat foggy. Is the 3rd century. Julius the first, who describes December 25th as the nativity, and then the other becomes the epiphany, or the presentation of the Magi to Jesus. So that sets the beginning, right? And how does this all become? How did it all become what it became? I mean, let's answer a few of the obvious, more interesting questions, like Santa Claus. Who's Santa Claus? The best we can tell, Santa Claus is a saint who lived on a Greek island, a bishop who lived on a Greek island, who came from a very wealthy family, but because he was a Christian, he was persecuted. He was tortured, actually. His name was Nicholas of Bari, Saint Nicholas of Bari, and Saint Nicholas of Bari would give gifts to children, and he would appear and help them in extraordinarily difficult situations. One who was deformed, he helped to cure him. Several daughters who were in a family that didn't have any money and weren't able to get married, he secretly provided the dowries for them. Many acts, all directed toward children.
How much equity do you have in your home? 50,000, 100,000, more? Cybercrime experts are alerting homeowners that the more equity you have, the greater the chance foreign and domestic criminals will come after you. Title theft is one of the fastest growing crimes. Home Title Lock, America's leader in home title protection, is alerting homeowners they could already be a victim and not know it. Here's how it goes down. First, cyber thieves search hundreds of public databases for high equity homes. Next, they pull your home's title that's online. They forge your signature stating you sold your home, and they take out loans using your equity. You're not covered by insurance, your bank, or common identity theft programs. Protect your most valuable asset. Register your address now to see if you're already a victim and receive a complete title history of your home. A $100 value free. Go to HomeTitleLock.com. That's HomeTitleLock.com.
Welcome back. Well, we were talking about a great subject, Santa Claus. And this will kind of give you an example of how this extremely serious religious story, religious act or set of facts becomes secularized, first in a rather beautiful way, and then sometimes in a very demeaning way. But so Saint Nicholas, as best we can tell, as I said, was a 4th century bishop of the Latin Church, the Roman Church. There were two parts to it then, but together, Western and Eastern. Large distinction being that the Western said Mass in Latin. The Pope was the undisputed leader of it. And the Eastern, the Mass was said in Greek, and the patriarch was the leader of it, or there were many patriarchs, and it was unclear as to whether they accepted the Pope as the leader. Some did, some didn't, and eventually that became the reason for the schism between them, although they remained together for 1,000 or 1,100 years with slightly different practices. But they both accepted the 25th as the day of Christmas, with the exception of the Armenian Church, which uses the Epiphany as the day of Christmas. So St. Nicholas was born in Asia Minor. He was tortured for his faith by the Roman Emperor Diocletian. And he was released and saved by Constantine the Great, who is, of course, the Roman emperor who made Christianity legal and really eventually made it the religion of the empire. So St. Nicholas of Bari is the gentleman who appeared to a terrified boy who was kidnapped and enslaved. He comforted the boy and brought him back to his mother, who had been without her child for over a year. When children got lost playing, and in one case, they were beaten very badly by a butcher. Nicholas prayed to God and he cured them and brought them back to the mother. And of course, the story about the daughters and the dowry, which is kind of a really interesting one. But Nicholas was so good to children that this painting was done by Mattia Preti. It's called The Glory of St. Nicholas of Bari. It was done in 1653. Don't know how well you can see it, but you can try to find it in art books. But you can see the great saint. And the great saint here is being given gifts. The young people are giving him gifts. And it almost seems like he's offering those gifts up to God, or he's acknowledging to God, you're the reason that I was able to do this. You see the children and their faces, they're quite expressive and very, looks like they're very grateful. And he has his arms up almost as if I don't deserve this. This is you, not me. Well, I show you that. I could show you so many others, right? Fra Angelico and his unbelievably beautiful paintings of the Virgin and the Child. And he spent all his life doing that. He painted it thousands and thousands and thousands of times just to get it right. So much of the art that makes up the art of Western civilization is religious. In fact, for a while, it was only religion. And so also the music. The music developed from the chant, became eventually the Gregorian chant, and then composers, German, Italian, began doing pieces with instruments and not just voices, although at first that was frowned on. Then we get all of the great religious music that becomes the basis for opera and symphony eventually. The one that I recommend, because what I am going to recommend to everyone is reading the story to your family every Christmas. We're just going to read in whatever order you want. Matthew 1, 18 to 25. That's not that long. Luke 1, 26 to 38. And then when we do the Epiphany, second book of Luke, 1 to 21. And I think, first of all, that sets aside all of the claims that oh gosh, it's not appropriate to celebrate, because there was no celebration laid out in the Bible. Well, the Bible certainly lays out all the reasons why it is quite appropriate to have a celebration. A substitute for reading it would be to listen to or go to a performance of, with a libretto, Bach's Christmas Oratorio, which was originally composed by Bach for the 12 days of Christmas in the Lutheran churches for their Vesper service in the late afternoon. And it has 6 parts, and it relates to Christmas, the second day, the third day, the Epiphany, but it borrows from the Gospels of Mark and Matthew. So you're reading the story. And you're getting also some of the greatest music ever composed by any human being, the great Johann Sebastian Bach.
Not long ago, Mike Lindell, the inventor of MyPillow, and his team fit me for my very own MyPillow. They also introduced me to their wide assortment of other incredible products, like their mattress topper, their sheets, towels, slippers, and more. Sleep is incredibly important to me, and I can assume for all of you. It's time you give MyPillow a try and see for yourself. Listeners have helped build MyPillow into the incredible company it is today, and Mike Lindell wants to give back to all of you. You can get great discounts on MyPillow products by going to mypillow.com right now and seeing each of the specially priced items, including those in the radio listener special square. You're going to see rotational offers up to 66% off on products like their pillows, mattress topper, Giza sheets, but also new products like their slippers, weighted blankets, robes, and waffle blankets. All MyPillow products come with a 60-day money-back guarantee. Enter promo code RUDY for these great specials. That's mypillow.com and use the promo code RUDY.
Welcome back on this Christmas Eve, and let's get to the more difficult part now. Christmas and the celebration of Christmas has had enormous challenges over the almost 2,000 years. First, it wasn't recognized, and it had to be decided on as to what it was, where it was. And then various things were added to it. The Christmas tree, which comes from many of the traditions of bringing trees into the house at the winter time to celebrate nature, and just to create beauty, and the Santa Claus that we talked about, the giving of gifts that comes out of many different backgrounds, Roman, Northern European, Asian. Christmas went through a period of time when it was religiously doubted during the break between, not so much the Reformation, it was after the Reformation, the break within even the Protestant churches. It was the Puritans' real revolt was against the Church of England, and which was, in their view, much too close to the theology and practice of the Papist Church, the Roman Catholic Church. So it's had a it's had an up and down experience, and Christians have been the subject of persecution many, many times over the centuries. Not focused on the way some other groups focus on it. And this is not to take away from those other groups that all of that persecution is equally sinful to God and equally horrible to human beings. But because of Christianity's great success, because it's become the religion most practiced in the world, it almost maybe makes Christians feel uncomfortable complaining. And also their love makes them somewhat even more sympathetic to others who are being persecuted, because others are being persecuted. But at different times, Christians were the subject, certainly during the Roman era, certainly during the rise of the Muslim invasions of Europe, and songs like Silent Night, for example, were composed during this period. It's composed in Germany by a composer named Franz Gruber, from lyrics that were given to him by a priest who had written them, and he didn't have anyone. He didn't have anyone that he thought could really do justice to it. The priest's name was Joseph Mohr, and he was an Austrian priest. And he was walking through the snow-covered forest, or I guess, of Austria. And he was just struck by the beauty of it. And he wrote down the words for Silent Night. He wrote down Stille Nacht. In German, it's Stille Nacht, Heilige Nacht. And then he was not a lyricist. So he went to his friend Franz Gruber, who was a school teacher, and he was the church's choir master. kind of a poor man's Johann Sebastian Bach. And together, they did they did Silent Night, and they performed it. They performed it that Christmas at midnight mass. There is a movie that I saw, I cannot find it, with Douglas Fairbanks Jr., in which during the development of it, the organ in the poor church goes out. So they don't have an organ, and they have to accompany it originally with a guitar. And of course, it was German, and it was brought to America by the German immigrants who came to America, translated into English. And of course, the story that just brings you to tears, right, is when they took the interruption during the First World War, where the English and French troops were one area, and in their trenches, and the Germans were across them in their area, and it was Christmas Eve night, and they weren't fighting, and both could hear that they were singing the same song. The English could hear the German words, Stille Nacht, and the Germans could hear Silent Night, Holy Night. Are we where we were when the author in Epic Times said that the Christmas, the message of it had been completely lost and overcome? I'm afraid we have. I don't mean all of us, but I mean as a society. Here's a poll which I think it tells you what you know. But in 2019, more than 9 in 10 Americans polled by Gallup said they celebrate Christmas. Well, that's good. But just 35% said they saw the holiday as strongly religious. That's very, very sad. Because even if it isn't strongly religious for you, you're denying history if you don't recognize it as being a celebration that exists only because of religion. It wouldn't be here. And you deny one of the reasons that people have faith, because it can do things like that. It can elevate. It can elevate to the point that something becomes universal. You say it might be the strength of the idea. The religious person says it's the hand of God. So how do we get there? Let's come to some conclusions here. Christmas needs to be revived. Whether we are believers, strong, moderate, or non-believers, for the education of our young people, they must know the derivation of Christmas. It is a lie to make it appear as if this is not derived from a tremendous religious tradition and from something that many, many people, hundreds of millions, billions of people have believed is religious and still do. You don't have to believe it, but you can't deny the history of it. That's what communists want you to do. They want nothing more than to wipe out the derivation of Christmas. My goodness. It would prevent communism if you kept to that derivation. So first, let me urge you, if you do know the story and you've broken away from it and the faith is no longer there, let me just give you a little test. So let's go back to Immanuel Kant and Kierkegaard. So they're great philosophers, right? Kierkegaard is the founder of existential philosophy. And you wouldn't think he would spend so much time on religion, but he did. And very simply, they came up with the following theory. Faith, belief in God, belief that God is the creator of the universe, and that there is more to this universe, meaning a life after death, than we understand or realize, cannot be proven by logic, reason, science, facts, arguments, tremendous egotism, that you know everything. Well, there's one thing that's absolutely true. And it was Aristotle it was Socrates and Plato and Aristotle who all made the point that the beginning of intelligence, reason, and philosophy is the acknowledgement that you don't know everything. And you never will. Because there's a body of knowledge beyond you. Now, what is that body of knowledge? I can't prove to you that it's God and faith, but you can take a leap. Think of it this way. Two mountains. It's a big chasm between the two mountains. Here are all the things that get you right up to defending belief in God. There's no one that creates a bridge. You just got to jump. And once you do, you'll see the certainty that you have. I don't know if I explained that well enough or not, but believe me, Kant and Kierkegaard, although I know when you hear the word philosophy, it sounds very imposing, explain it very, very beautifully and very easily. So one way we can reestablish Christmas is we can get more people back to the actual belief in the story. So let's make that a big part of our New Year's resolution. And in fact, as part of our Christmas celebration every year, let's remind ourselves of it. The way the Jewish people remind themselves during the Passover. Never forget. Maybe we have to develop a new tradition. Here's the new tradition. The new tradition is, for those of you who believe, I want you to go to church. There's nothing that surpasses going to church and listening to the beautiful midnight mass gospel. But whether you go to church or you don't, I want you to establish a new ceremony, tradition in your family. I want you to read the Christmas story. Sometime on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day when the family gathers, either your small nuclear family or your large extended family. I want you to go take out, it's easy. It's very short. Very, very short. And if you have a couple of people who like to perform, every family has people who like to perform, they would love to read this stuff. They would love to read it. And it depends on how much you want to read. I don't know that you need all the genealogies. I'm not even sure how accurate they are, right? But I would certainly begin with Luke. And because I think one of the most powerful stories in the Bible is the Annunciation. And the angel said unto her, "Fear not, Mary, for thou hast found favor with God. And behold, thou shalt conceive in thy womb and bring forth a son, and shalt call his name Jesus. He shall be great, and he shall be called the Son of the Highest. And the Lord God shall give unto him the throne of the father David." Then said Mary unto the angel, "How shall this be, seeing I know not a man?" And the angel answered and said unto her, the Holy Ghost shall come upon thee, and the power of the highest shall overshadow thee. Therefore also that holy thing which shall be born of thee shall be called the Son of God.